Hi UK Carpers, Mike AJ here. Welcome to my review of the Nash Bushwhacker baiting pole. I bought my baiting pole in April of 2021. I paid £189 for the basic kit from Total Fishing Tackle. The basic kit comes with 10 poles, each pole's 1.5 meters in length, and also the baiting spoon that fits on the end. The spoon itself holds about, they claim about 900 grams, so just short of 1 kilo of bait. I've personally never loaded it up with that amount of bait. It also comes with a canvas bag to put your poles and your baiting spoon in. Upon first using it, realised the piece of kit is fantastic. However, 15 meters of baiting pole probably isn't enough, and you very quickly, if you purchase one of these, you'll very quickly realise that you need extra lengths. Back in April, we had the issue with the container ship that ran aground in the Suez, the Ever Given. Items of fishing gear was in very short supply. I suspect there was a lot of items on that container ship that were bound for the UK. I was struggling to find extra baiting pole lengths from Nash, so I resorted to purchasing a second kit. So I ended up with 30 meters worth of range on the baiting pole, and of course a spare spoon, which I found quite useful because I attached a GoPro mount to it, so I could interchange between just having a basic baiting spoon or one with a GoPro mount, so I could explore the margins with a little bit more detail after the event by analysing the video. However, I still found that for my fishing, 30 meters wasn't quite enough, so I placed an order for more poles, and my personal kit takes me out to about 42 meters, which is, I would say, on the extreme of what you can use the Bushwhacker for. So my total investment was getting on for £450, which is a lot of money, and I appreciate that's way out of the pocket of a lot of anglers. However, when you compare it to the price of a bait boat, it kind of compares with the cheaper end of the market of bait boats. Of course, not all venues permit you to use a bait boat, and certainly some of the venues that I fish, a syndicate lake and a number of club waters, bait boats are banned from those waters, and also a few day ticket fisheries that I frequent. So I found the bait pole, the Bushwhacker baiting pole system, really useful. In all honesty, it's transformed my carp fishing this year. I've been able to get into the margins that where before, you know, overhanging trees and such like, where you couldn't cast, where traditionally a bait boat would be quite useful for, being able to get in amongst the reeds or on the margins of the reeds with accuracy. I've also been able to deploy bait and spod and pre-bait spots with high accuracy using the bait pole. Because you know each pole is 1.5 meters long, it means by just adding more poles you very quickly can work out the distance from the bank to your fishing spot. And of course, by adding the GoPro as well, if the waters are clear, and certainly one of the lakes I fish, the water is gin clear, so with a GoPro mounted so you can do an underwater shot, you can really check out the state of the bottom and see where the fish have been grubbing around and cleared an area, and indeed on the edge where there's maybe still a weed patch and such like. So for me, the Bushwhacker has been absolutely exceptional. I've caught hundreds and hundreds of pounds of carp this year using the Bushwhacker. When you get out to the sort of length that I'm using it at, so you know, in excess of 30 meters. As I said, it can be a little bit tricky to control, but there's a number of ways of countering that, and I'll demonstrate that when I do an on-water part of this review. The poles themselves are pretty robust. They've got spring connections between each pole. Some sites, if you frequent, they claim the poles are carbon fibre. However, if you go on the Nash site, they state that they're fiberglass. They're not carbon fibre, but they are still very lightweight, and they're well made. The bait spoon itself has integrated floats, so you don't need to add any extra flotation device, or you don't really need to add a net float. However, I found that, again, when using the GoPro camera on the head of the spoon, I add a net float to the last pole, and it just adds that extra little bit of flotation and stability to the bait spoon. Also, if you're going out to the 40-meter range, again, a net float deployed sort of midway assists with keeping the poles clear of the water and stops them filling up with water and just making the whole kit a little bit harder to use and to manoeuvre. Anyway, enough said. Let's take a look at the Bushwhacker down at a lake. Let's look at some of the different techniques for using for loading it with boilies or with liquidized corn, or just with spod, and let's look at also some of the techniques for deploying the Bushwhacker, both at short range and at long range. And then finally we'll take a look at some aftercare. Like any piece of fishing equipment, especially expensive fishing equipment like the Bushwhacker, you need to look after it. So quite simple to do, but we'll take a look at that once we've deployed it and demonstrated it on the lake. If you like the video, please subscribe, and also take a look at my other videos on the channel. And again, if you like those, leave a comment or subscribe to the channel. So when assembling the Bushwhacker, make sure all of the joints are clean. Give them a quick wipe down with a towel, and then what I recommend is you assemble probably 3 lengths so put it into effectively 4.5 meter lengths, and that makes assembly at the water's edge so much quicker with deployment, because you've got, rather than deploy individual poles, you're deploying sets of poles out to 4.5 meters. So assemble all of the poles. Like I say, my particular kit gets me out to 45 meters, about 42 meters, sorry. I previously wiped all of these poles before I came out today, so they fit together nice and neatly, no grit, nothing to abrade the connection. So as I mentioned earlier on the video, I've got 2 baiting spoon heads because I bought 2 kits, and as I said, I've mounted a GoPro camera onto the head of one of them, and the other head is just a standard delivery spoon. Because I use a GoPro and it adds a little bit more weight onto the end of the baiting spoon, I had a net float onto the pole nearest to the baiting spoon. When placing the bait into the head of the baiting spoon, place your lead into the compartment provided, and then there's a little notch for putting your line across, and then just put your bait into the main baiting spoon. Today I'm just using a small PVA bag of boilies. I've pre-baited a spot over the past few days, and just going to deploy it out. So when deploying the the Bushwhacker, feed it out, have your bail arm open, and then just simply connect more lengths of your preset lengths and deploy out to where you want to place your bait. And if you want to steer the head of the baiting spoon, just apply pressure to the pole one way and then the other way, and it will simply move the baiting pole to the position you want. Obviously this gets a little bit harder as you deploy further out, and I will demonstrate that on the next deployment, because I'm going to go out to about 35-40 meters. So we're in a spot I've pre-baited, and just rotate and deploy. Today there's no wind, so there's nothing counteracting the Bushwhacker head. But if there's a crosswind, it can be quite tricky to deploy against the crosswind. So ideally you want to deploy either downwind or upwind, so that you get you don't have the effect of the wind on the side of the baiting spoon, and obviously on the water pushing the baiting spoon in one direction. But if I now apply some left hand pressure to the pole, the head gradually starts to come round, and if I then reverse that and apply some right hand pressure to the pole, as you can see the pole snakes in the opposite direction, and the head starts to whip round to the direction that you want it to go, and then simply straighten up and deploy out. So now another technique you can do is close your bail arm on your rod, on your reel, tighten the line up slightly, and then use the rod to pull the head round. So you can use pressure on the rod, and it gradually moves the baiting pole up. As you can see, as it comes in, the poles float on the surface of the water. At long distances you do get a little bit of water ingress into the poles, but it's not an issue. It doesn't cause the poles to sink. All it means is when you get the poles to the bank, you have to just drain a little bit of water out of the last few poles. So next I'm going to demonstrate, if you're going to deploy a sticky or gloopy type bait, today I'm using liquidized sweet corn. A tip I picked up from Julian Cundiff is to spray the inside of your baiting spoon with some spray cooking oil, and then when you put your liquidized corn in, the corn discharges out. So once you've disconnected your poles, sometimes you get a bit of grit, a bit of dirt on the end of the poles. You don't want that to be on there, because next time you connect it, just abrade the connections and the connections will become loose. So simply just plunge them in the water, give them a wiggle around both ends, let it drain, and then just dry them with a towel or a cloth, and then that next time you come to use them, that prevents any grit or dirt, like I say, abrading the fiberglass and the connection. So to conclude my review of the Nash Bushwhacker baiting pole system, it is quite an expensive product. The basic kit's £189, £190, but if you do purchase one, you will very quickly probably realise that you need to buy additional poles, so it'll push your investment up beyond the initial investment. I invested in the region of £450 in the kit, and that gets me out to about 42 metres. Is it worth the money? Yes. Has it changed my fishing? Yes. On venues where you can't use a bait boat, the Bushwhacker gets into those overhanging trees areas, the tight margins, where you ordinarily wouldn't risk casting, and it also places your bait with a high degree of accuracy. Would I buy one again? Absolutely I would. Since I've purchased mine in April of this year, the Bushwhacker has contributed to well over, I would say, £1,300 worth of fish caught, of carp caught in that period. And some of those fish, yes, I would have caught them anyway, but some of them were definitely in areas where the Bushwhacker, in my opinion, made the difference. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please hit subscribe or hit like, and if you'd like to see any of the other videos that I've posted, have a look at my channel. There's a video on there of some of the fish that I've caught using the Bushwhacker.